Bear then discovered Laurel Thomas's, Charlotte Bellamy, planned to attend Ray Walters', Joe Absalom, burial and wanted to go as well. Seeing the man he was abused by, but also killed, was incredibly difficult for Bear, but he wanted to go for closure, and because he believed it was the least he could do after taking the man's life. Processing this was an entirely different matter. He was up all night drinking, and trying to ignore the fact his arm injury, sustained on the farm, was still causing him bother. Bear attempted to get help from Manpreet Sharma, Rebecca Sarkar, but she refused to prescribe Bear the meds, knowing about his addiction to them. Frustrated and desperate, Bear injured his hand and took off to A&E, believing he could get the meds there. When he came across Jacob Gallagher, Joe Warren Plant, Bear's anger grew even more when the young resident doctor explained he wasn't able to prescribe him meds on his own. Bear grabbed Jacob in the same wrestling hold he had Ray in before he died. Jacob survived though, as he kicked a trolley over and startled the vulnerable man. When Bear learnt that the police were on their way, he ran out of the hospital. We saw him wandering the street alone, unaware of where he was planning on going. In this new video, a deeply worried Mandy Dingle, Lisa Riley, is on the phone telling Marlon Dingle, Mark Charnock, about Bear going missing. Paddy and Dylan Penders, Fred Kettle, then return from a few more hours of searching. Following behind them, to their annoyance, is D.S. Walsh, Amanda Ryan. The detective explains that because Bear has broken his curfew and assaulted Jacob, he needs to be rearrested. Paddy is absolutely gutted. Fortunately for him, he will find Bear before the police do, and he's concerned to find his dad sat next to Anya's now empty grave. When Bear first overheard Laurel Thomas, Charlotte Bellamy, discussing her plan to attend Ray Walters', Joe Absalom, burial, something inside him shifted. Ray had abused him, manipulated him, exploited his vulnerabilities. And yet, Bear had also taken Ray's life. It had been chaotic, brutal, a moment born of fear, anger, and survival. The village might see Ray as complicated, some even sympathetic. But Bear's emotions were far messier than anyone could understand. When he told Laurel he wanted to attend the burial too, she hesitated. "You don't owe him anything," she said gently. But Bear shook his head. "I owe myself," he replied. "I need to see it through." He believed standing at that graveside would give him closure. He had no idea it would instead reopen every wound. The burial was quiet, muted, heavy. When Bear stood at the edge of the grave, staring down at the coffin, memories crashed over him. Ray's voice, Ray's control, Ray calling him Dad during their time on the farm, twisting affection into manipulation. And then the final confrontation. The moment Bear had pinned him in that wrestling hold. The hold that had ended a life. Bear's chest tightened. He wasn't sure if he felt grief, or relief, or guilt. Processing it felt impossible. A night of self-destruction. Back home, the silence was unbearable. Bear didn't sleep. Instead, he drank, bottle after bottle, trying to numb the noise in his head. His injured arm throbbed, a constant reminder of the chaos on the farm. The pain was sharp, insistent, just like the guilt. He stared at his reflection in the dark window. "I did what I had to," he muttered. But the words didn't stick. A desperate plea. The next morning, exhausted and shaking, Bear turned to Manpreet Sharma, Rebecca Sarkar. He needed relief. From the pain in his arm. From the pain in his head. "Just something to take the edge off," he pleaded. Manpreet's expression softened, but her resolve didn't. "You know I can't do that, Bear," she said. "Not with your history." Ray had supplied him with drugs before. That spiral had nearly destroyed him. Manpreet refused to risk it happening again. Bear's frustration flared. "You don't understand," he snapped. But she did understand. And that was precisely why she wouldn't prescribe them. Crossing the line. Desperation makes people reckless. Back outside, Bear stood alone, anger bubbling beneath his skin. He looked at his hand, then at the nearby wall. In one swift, furious motion, he punched it. Pain exploded through his knuckles. Blood followed. Good, he thought. Now they'll have to treat me. A&E chaos. At Hot On General's A&E, Bear's temper simmered. When Jacob Gallagher, Joe Warren Plant, approached him, calm and professional, Bear felt something snap. Jacob examined the injury. "You'll need an X-ray," he said carefully. "And the medication?" Bear demanded. Jacob hesitated. "I can't prescribe that on my own. I need approval." The words echoed like a denial of help. Bear saw red. The wrestling hold. In a split second, Bear grabbed Jacob. Instinct. Muscle memory. The same wrestling hold he had used on Ray. Jacob's eyes widened in terror as Bear tightened his grip. For Bear, it was as though time fractured. Ray's face flashed in his mind. The farm. The struggle. The moment it ended. Jacob kicked over a trolley, the crash jolting Bear back to reality. Staff shouted. Alarms blared. Bear released him, breathing hard, shaking. When he heard someone mention the police, panic surged. He ran. On the run. Bear burst out of the hospital and into the street, heart pounding. He didn't know where he was going. He just knew he couldn't stay. His thoughts were fragmented. I didn't mean to hurt him. I just needed help. Why won't anyone help me? He wandered aimlessly. Lost. Panic at home. Back in the village, Mandy Dingle, Lisa Riley, was beside herself. On the phone to Marlon Dingle, Mark Charnock, her voice trembled. He's gone, Marlon. He just disappeared. Paddy and Dylan Penders, Fred Kettle, had spent hours searching. They returned empty-handed. And behind them, much to their irritation, came D.S. Walsh, Amanda Ryan. The detective's tone was firm. Bear has broken his curfew and assaulted a doctor. He needs to be rearrested. Paddy felt like the ground had been pulled from beneath him. His dad wasn't a criminal. He was broken. There's a difference. But the law doesn't always see it that way. A son's fear. Paddy refused to wait. Ignoring Walsh's warnings, he set off again. He knew his dad. He knew where he might go when everything felt too much. There was only one place that made sense. The graveyard. Anya's grave. When Paddy arrived, his heart cracked. Bear was sitting beside Anya's empty grave. The woman he had loved. The loss he had never fully healed from. He looked small. Defeated. Like a man who had lost his fight. I didn't mean to hurt anyone, Bear whispered as Paddy approached. Paddy knelt beside him. I know. Tears welled in Bear's eyes. I killed him. I keep telling myself it was self-defense. But what if it wasn't? Paddy didn't have easy answers. He just had love. And fear. Because the police were coming. A race against time. For a moment, father and son sat in silence. The world felt distant. But sirens would soon pierce that quiet. Dad, you have to come with me, Paddy urged. We'll face this properly. Bear's shoulders sagged. He was tired. So very tired. I just wanted it to stop hurting, he admitted. Paddy helped him to his feet. And for once, Bear didn't resist. The bigger picture. Bear's downward spiral isn't just about Ray. It's about trauma. Addiction. Shame. The crushing weight of taking a life, even in defense. In Emmerdale, villains and victims often blur. Ray had abused Bear. Bear had killed Ray. Both truths exist at once. And now, Bear must live with that. What comes next? D.S. Walsh won't back down. Jacob is shaken but alive. Manpreet stands by her medical decision. And Paddy is left holding the pieces of his father's fractured world. The question now isn't whether Bear will be rearrested. It's whether he can be saved from himself. Because sometimes, the most dangerous battles aren't fought on farms or in hospital corridors. They're fought in the quiet hours of the night, when guilt is louder than reason, and forgiveness feels impossible. For Bear Wolf, the fight isn't over. It's only just begun.